Hi Steve, so your seven chambers Luke hilt is all ready, or MOM. Um, these are pretty incredible with the crystal chamber. They go together very well, but you have to be a bit careful. Some of the tolerances are really fine, so they take a bit of dialing in to get them right. And I've had to mod a few little things just to get it in the sweet spot, sort of thing. But I'll run you through all of that in a sec. There's also the blade. Obviously, you've got a recessed connector in there, which better for thin neck shallow emitters like this, which again I'll run you through in a second. You'll get the full list of all the fonts and presets. Obviously, you've got the crystal chamber and the plasma gate, which all have different animations. They can all be programmed separately. So I've done a whole sort of range of them in there, which are all detailed in this, so you can help navigate your way around it. And also, you're the first person to get one of these. Our new edition of the SaberSense magazine. This is now a full 80 pages, our collector's edition. So that's part of it. This has grown. It started out just me writing the instructions, and I got a bit carried away. So yeah, that's going to be included. There's a few other bits in there, charging tail and everything, because it's just a micro charge port. But I'll run you through all the details, and yeah, you can kind of see what's what. So we'll start at the simple end, pommel cap. Simply unscrews. You'll notice the threads are nice and smooth. There's no binding or anything. The one thing with these hilts is the chassis system is quite complex, and you need to get it completely aligned and completely square, or things can sort of bind up. So, but that's all sorted on this one. So we've got there is our speaker pod, 28mm base speaker. Got the connector there, which aligns with the two pins on there to make the speaker connection. You've got a little bit of tape on the SD card should you ever need to get it out. It's a bit hard to get hold of, so there's a bit of tape on there to help get something to get hold of to pull it out. You shouldn't need to do it. It's all the fonts are all loaded up, it's all programmed, and it's got the screen accurate sound font on it for this hilt as well from K-Sith, so it's you should all be good to go. You've also got underneath there is our charge port. Now you'll need, because it's smaller than standard, you'll need this little tail. I'll include this. So that basically plugs into the charge port, and then the charger, the normal 2.1mm charger goes in there. Let me know if you need a charger, and I can add one. So yeah, just goes in until it clicks. There you go, and that's good to go for charging. So I'll include that. So let's put the pommel cap back on. Being careful not to let this swing down and scratch this lovely finish. So moving on to the switch box, if we slide this back, you've got a screen accurate PCB inside there, the red wire, the little blue capacitor or whatever. I mean, it's all dummy, so it doesn't really matter, but it's all as it was in the film. I painted the patterns on the chip there to make it look, again, super screen accurate. And it's all nice and flush with the switch box, so it all sits at the right height. Got our kill switch in there, which I'll come back to in a second. Now the clamp card, I put a little sign on the back, blade that way. It fits better sliding it in from the back. You'll see right around my phone to do this, because it's nice and loose until it gets to there, and then it sort of gives a little bit of resistance just to hold it in place. So yeah, so that's the switch box. So moving to the emitter now. This emitter ring, the way the blade fits is you've got this recessed blade disc in there. So the idea is the sides of the blade go down the sides of that, get it focused, down the sides of the heatsink in there, which, because you've got so little blade depth, it makes the whole thing much stronger, makes the whole blade fitting much stronger. Now the issue on these rings is, where these come from 7 chambers, this hole is a bit of a tight fit, so getting it over the blade, and you have to slide that over the blade before you can put it back on there, because you need to get underneath it to tighten the blade retention screw. So this being tight on the blade is a bit of a problem. So I got it on the lathe, and I've carefully machined off a tiny probably about 0.2 of a millimeter off the inside diameter there, so it just slips much more comfortably over the blade. It goes a little bit tight on that bit, because inside there is the connector, which is a sort of tight push fit and it just flares the tube slightly, but that won't make any difference once you're sort of fitting it on. But I'll come back to the blade in a second. We'll fit that in a minute. So that's the emitter ring. I'll pop that back on. So the heart of it is obviously the crystal chamber. Again, you'll notice none of the threads binding. It's all nice and free. Everything's really nicely aligned inside there. And there is our crystal chamber. So if we power it up, slide that back. Now I've made a special little 3D printed plastic dibber. I don't think it's the right word for it. So you haven't got to poke anything metal in there to get to the kill switch. So I flick that down. You can see the little red mark shows you that's the sort of on side. We get our cave scene accent sound. Crystals in there, starts pulsing. Obviously green, Luke's colour. And then when we slide that back, when we light it up, that will obviously be what the blade is doing. The crystal will follow the blade, and then if you look inside here, over a little bit of time, as it heats up, it starts glowing red hot inside. Not really, obviously. That would be quite dangerous. So yeah, there's not all of the blade styles do that. Again, it's itemised on the list that I'll send you, but that red heat thing is one of my favourites, so I've put that on the first one. And then when you shut it off, it takes a few seconds to cool down. So yeah, another little realism touch that it's become a bit of a trademark of mine, I must say. I'm quite into red hot chassis for some reason. So once that's on, and we've got our blinking, again, matches the screen accurate for the cave scene. That's what Luke's accent LEDs were doing in the famous deleted cave scene. So yeah, to get the blade in, as I was saying, you need to slip the collar, slip the emitter ring over there. Oh, and one thing to notice, when you're when you're undoing the ring, always hold that to undo it rather than here, because I mean it's all pretty tight, but that is screwed onto that, is screwed onto that, and you don't want this wiring going through there, so you don't want any of these to loosen from each other. So when you're undoing the emitter, do that. Hold the silver emitter bit. It goes in until it stops. Now normally you would just use an Allen key. I'll supply one with it, little tiny Allen key there. I'll chuck one of those in, but I won't bother just for this demonstration. So you just nip the screw up, don't need to be very tight, and then you can turn the emitter ring down and you're good to go. So then you can light it up. She lives. Got all of your effects and everything, obviously. Blaster blocks, lock-ups, clashes. It's all there. Now you'll notice, you can't really see this on the camera, but you can see it in real life. There's almost no shadow here. Now this is a real problem with thin neck sabers, is you've got no depth. So by the time the LED strip is sort of at the end of the blade, especially if you've got the heatsink in there, you end up with a shadow because there's no LEDs at the end. The way we got around it was the disc that you sent with the LEDs on the back of it is what I've wired in there. So you've got 6 discs, 6 LEDs on the back of the blade disc, which light up the first bit, and then the main strips carry on from there. It gives a really good effect with no shadow, which is quite unusual for a thin neck saber. So yeah, I think that's everything. That is your Magic of Myth lightsaber. Enjoy.